I always knew I wanted to be a mother. When I was an anthropology graduate student in the 1990s, I studied people's experiences with infertility, and I was deeply touched by their stories. About 2 weeks before my 30th birthday, I interviewed a 35-year-old woman. She and her husband had been trying to get pregnant for almost 5 years. We sat in her living room for 3 hours as she cried and told me her story. Before I left, she asked me how old I was and if I had any kids. I said, well, I'm young and healthy. I have plenty of time. I'll be 30 in 2 weeks. She grabbed my hand and said, Diane, don't be like me. Don't wait. Try to have a child now while you still can. I left that interview and sat in my car for the next half hour, crying because her story affected me so deeply. When I got home, I immediately scheduled a checkup. I was lying on the exam table and noticed the doctor's sudden look of concern. She sent me for an ultrasound because she felt something suspicious. 2 weeks later, I was headed into surgery. I awoke, hazy from anesthesia, and the surgeon told me I had 2 large ovarian cysts, one the size of a grapefruit, the other the size of a pineapple. He removed the left ovary, but was able to reconstruct the right. He said, "You're lucky. Most surgeons would have just taken both." My recovery was marked by a deep desire to have a baby and the fear that my body would fail me. I even thought about finding an egg donor who looked like me if my own eggs didn't work. But they did. I met someone new, I married within a few months, and by the time I was 31, I had my first son, and then quickly had my second. I divorced 2 years later. 20 years later, I'm now doing research on egg donors. Many are young college students struggling to pay student loans and other bills. They have little knowledge about how egg donation could affect their lives. After talking to over 100 donors, I've heard stories from all sides of the spectrum. But every woman I've spoken to asks one particular question. Is egg donation safe? The truth is, we just don't know. The research on how it affects women's health has not been done. Some donors I've talked to who helped other people conceive now face their own infertility. They'll never be able to have a child. I do this work because women considering egg donation have a right to be fully informed. I know what it feels like to be at the margins of fertility, with my own patched-up ovary, thinking I might need an egg donor someday. I understand how physicians strive to help their infertile patients. But in that anxiety-filled space, the humanity of women who provide eggs is often lost.